Our voicemail number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Got a voicemail about the race and IQ debate. That was very interesting. Take a listen to this.
Hi, David. I just wanted to call in and ask, well, as I'm asking this, I just remembered you did a video on the IQ, basically just exposing the myths of it and the false arguments. But, and I don't know if you bring this up specifically, but Asians, pertaining to Asians, they usually do, generally speaking, better than most races. And alt-writers, they'll use this oftentimes to bring up why America's not racist, because Asians usually do better, they have higher IQs. So I was just interested to see how you combat this and would argue against this. Thank you. Bye.
I don't even know what the argument is. I guess what the caller is saying is so-called race realists claim that America isn't racist because Asians have high IQs. I mean, number one, I would say, what evidence do we have that they have high IQs because they're Asian, right?
What evidence do we have that Asians have high IQs because they're Asian? It's a very odd way of framing that. Well, here's the evidence that we have. They have high IQs, the Asians. That's the evidence. When Asians take tests, they score the way they do. When whites and blacks do, they score the way they do. So the argument is, people with white guilt like you freak out over the notion that black people score worse, on average, than other races. And you criticize and label anyone who recognizes this obvious fact as being a racist, but overlook the fact that the same people that say, hey, the test results are the test results, man, are also willing to admit openly that Asians score higher. So if they were so racist, wouldn't they declare victory over the Asians and the Jews? Why would they admit that they are inferior when it comes to IQ test scores when compared to Asians and Jews? Maybe, just maybe, they are not racists, and in fact, all they're doing is being real. They are realists. Everybody should be a realist, not just on race, but on everything. What an embarrassing thing this is to witness. Even regressive shitlords like David Pakman, they acknowledge that the numbers are the way the numbers are. They're scurrying and hiding behind this thing of, well, but why are the numbers? I think it's environment. Nothing to do with the brain. Right, so an IQ test, not really anything to do with the brain. It's more about, I don't know, lead paint. It's more about poverty, somehow if you're poor, or maybe malnutrition. Yeah, that's probably it. But they do recognize that Asians, oh no, they do have high IQs. And blacks, oh yeah, their numbers are lower. Oh, and whites are where whites are. Yeah, but it probably has nothing to do with race. It's like saying, why do the Kenyans keep winning the marathons? I mean, is anybody disputing that Kenyans dominate the world when it comes to long distance running? Anybody? You can't do that. You can't do that the same way you can't deny the stats about IQ tests. So should I then take the argument and say, wait, but do Kenyans perform better in long distance running because they're Kenyan? Is it biological or is it environmental? Oh, this is a workaround. So it's not that Kenyans are superior. No, they just live in a high altitude. So they have shit public transportation. So they have to run to school. So from very early on, they're training their lungs and they're developing endurance, and it's environment. Well, yeah, everything's environment if you want to go back and talk about it evolutionarily. The white peoples of Europe and the Caucasus Mountains, they fucked a bunch of Neanderthals due to the environment. They were in our environment, and so we said, did you see the ass on that Neanderthal chick? Let's get it. And then that led to bigger brains, which led to better test scores. I guess. Seems to make sense to me. Oh, but if you did have a white kid and you raised them in Kenya and you let them run around in high altitude all their life, maybe they would perform better at long distance running. And similarly, if you took black people today and crossbred them with the bloodlines that we were crossbred with and evolved their brain in the same way that our brains were evolved, oh, then they'd score well on the IQ tests too. So don't worry about it. It's all this if this, then that. I mean, reality is the way reality is, but if my uncle had a pussy, she'd be my aunt.
Like that's fundamental question number one, and we talked about that with Eric Turkheimer. But if someone asked me to argue about, I'd opt out of that conversation. I don't even know what the argument is.
Well, it's so rock solid that you can't argue against it.
I would immediately shut down. I wouldn't know how to argue against it.
Yeah, once again, David, the argument is that not everybody's racist for acknowledging the facts about IQ differences between groups. That's the argument, as evidenced by the fact that they don't even put themselves at the top tier of these comparisons, which you are implying that they would be wanting to do because you're calling them racists. And it's funny that every time you call one of these people a racist for acknowledging the average difference between IQ scores, between whites and blacks, you're also not calling them people who are openly acknowledging their inferiority to Jews and Asians. Why not? Interesting. You don't have a problem with that. You're not going after Jews and Asians and saying, what's up with these white people who are all into yellow supremacy and Jewish supremacy? No, you call it white supremacy because you look at it through the filter of they think they're better than blacks because reality when it comes to average IQ scores. Get real, David Pakman, you vanilla Ryan Seacrest of YouTube. Bye-bye! Notice what you didn't see in the Young Turk video. No picture of the perpetrator, no mention of the perpetrator's race, and no mention of a GoFundMe for the victim. My videos about the Young Turks are pure, unadulterated ponage. It is spectacular to witness, to the point where when I watch my videos back, I'm impressed with myself. Okay? It's a weird feeling, but I'm feeling it again. All praise me, Devin, uber honest.